Welcome to the Two Dudes Talk Music YouTube channel. I am the Reverend Raff.
We did it. We made it.
Because when a band's name starts being everywhere, it can be very easy to go like, okay, like.
It's because I know what it's like to feel left out and to feel like people are weird or mean to you, and so I never want to be that person, and I want...
This here is my good friend Kyle, aka the BeerBuddy.
Big opportunity. You guys must be stoked you're on the first day too, because you can just sort of shoot. Yeah, you can just relax.
Brian was sitting down with his our longtime friend and his former bandmate Meegs from Cold Chamber, and they were having coffee, and Brian was...
When those questions go, those hearty chuckles.
You know what that laughter says to me is like, people don't even know what's coming. People are just going to be minds are going to be blown by that.
No, it will be a fucking banger.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Two Dudes Talk Music podcast. I am the Reverend Raff, joined once again by my good friend Kyle, aka the BeerBuddy.
What's going on, everybody?
We are the Two Dudes Who Talk Music, and we are back today with another podcast episode for you guys. But before we dive into that, if you have fun with us today, if you enjoy our episodes and the kind of content we're putting out, it'd mean a lot if you could consider hitting the subscribe button and that notification bell. We do drop 6 videos every week. So that's like reactions and podcasts and interviews and, sometimes even 7. If we get into extra interviews, we'll drop them on the, thing. You get 7 videos a week, man, if you get some of those ones. But we also have, our series Rockin' Around the World, where we're exploring all sorts of weird and wonderful bands from all over the planet. Like I said, plenty of interviews and all that stuff. So yeah, lots of musical content coming your way. So if you enjoy that kind of stuff, buttons right there for you. We do also have a Patreon. It's just a couple of bucks a month. So you get everything early and ad free, but like $2 Australian a month. That's not even 10 cents a day. So it'd be great if you could consider checking that out too. Just helps to, cover some of the basic operating costs of everything we're doing here. Because I'll be honest with you, we ain't doing it for the fucking money. I'll tell you that much. But
Could be DJs.
mate, before we dive in though, mate, look, how you been? How you doing? What's been going on?
I'm good, man. No real news. My little dog turned 12.
Oh,
yeah, man.
Getting on a bit.
He's getting on, but yeah. But other than that, man, no news here, mate. No news here. Just keen to get out to some shows. Got Earthbomb coming up.
That'll be exciting. That'll be exciting.
Really looking forward to going Stone to Death. My first. Yeah, Stoner Grindcore Festival. So
and if you're going to be out at that one, make sure you keep an eye out for Kyle. Say hi. He'll probably have some stickers for you.
I will. I have
Probably
the cameras. I have everything.
For you. I have the camera and everything there. And that goes for the bands too. If your band is playing at Stone to Death and you want to come on the podcast and talk to us, reach out. Talk to Kyle. He'll have business cards. It'll have our email and phone number and everything. You can just reach out to us and set shit up. It'll be awesome.
That's it, man.
We love to talk to you guys.
How are you going, beautiful man?
Tired. I am so fucking tired. But getting there. Making shit happen, continuing on, keeping on as it is. Trying to schedule all this stuff, doing work, doing editing, all the fun stuff.
Yeah.
I do apologize to everyone on the Patreon that the schedule has been a little wonky lately. They haven't maybe been coming out at the same time as they normally would. It's just been crazy trying to keep up with everything there. But speaking of the Patreon again, though, I do want to give a shout out to our amazing Patreon subscribers. So we have Tim. Love your work, Tim. Timmy.
Miss you, buddy.
Blue Eyes Tim. Australia's Brad Pitt. Such a handsome fella.
He is.
Also, shout out to Teresk, who I think Teresk is subscribed from the US. The thing's coming in US dollars. So hey, if Teresk, if that is you, thank you very, very much. Wherever you're subscribing from, my friend, thank you so much. And of course, the other one. He's not this one. He's not that one. He's the other one. I don't know. That's just what the username says. Very mysterious by the look of it. Thank you very, very much to all of our Patreon subscribers. And you could get your name shouted out at the start of our videos if you go over and check it out. Hey, what do you know? And sometimes we put, sometimes just not to harp on it, but sometimes we do put exclusive content up there as well. Like some of our reaction videos, if they get blocked, for the video gets blocked, we might put it up there on Patreon with the full video, or if the video is particularly graphic, we might censor it and put the full one up on there, or just some. And sometimes we even have videos that we try and put up and they just get blocked completely. Like we just can't.
Yeah.
They just get
Can't do it.
blocked, even with just the
Computer
music.
says no.
So those ones to go up just on the Patreon as well. So there is a little bit of exclusive content over there, and we are working to, on some ideas and ways to expand on that. But no, man. But look, in the life over here, we're keeping on. Been trying to fucking keep on top of the lawns with this rain. We have not since the fucking hurricane came through, mate. We had a couple of days after the hurricane where it was clear, and then it has just been rain.
Wet.
It has been rain since then. I have barely had a chance to mow my lawn. I managed to get out there before we did today and get the front lawn done, but it's not as low as I'd like, not as clean or even as I'd like, but I just had to get something done. So
Yeah.
but hey, you guys
Australia, baby.
Australia. You guys aren't here to hear about my lawn. You guys are here to talk music. You guys are here to hear about music. And boy, oh my God, do we have something for you today. This fellow is like some kind of prodigy or something, I reckon.
I don't know what you call him, man. But he's a dude. He's an absolute legend.
Yeah.
Like, he's just such a great chat.
Been playing music since he was, a little over a
14
year
months.
old, 14 months old, started playing piano, learning piano and everything. So this is some real, like, old school, Mozart, like, prodigy, wunderkind stuff. Here, and he's been releasing. He's all over the place. He is a teacher, he tutor. He does mixing and mastering, and he has his own
Production.
fucking bands and all his production and just so
Recording
much
studio.
stuff. So much stuff. He's worked in all throughout the industry. So he's got a bunch of solo albums out as well online that we're going to be talking about. But look, today for you we have Van Leucia. From Sydney. So we're going to jump in to our chat with Van Leucia, and we will see you guys in just a second. Welcome, Van Leucia, Van Luca, Van Lucia, however we want to say it. Really different ways,
That's right.
mate. But look, thank you so much for joining us today. Very, very much appreciated. When Kyle kind of, said, hey, I met this dude at this show, like wanted to get him on to talk about stuff, sent me a link through to your Spotify and everything. I've been having a listen through those things. Mate, you're blowing my mind here. You really, really are. Like, honestly. For as I understand it, a one-man project, essentially, to be, it's like, rock opera, musical, like Pink Floyd kind of concept albums, all kind of, thrown in together on it. Like, are you okay? What I mean?
Yeah, I think my friends cop it the most because not all of my friends are musicians, and they have to hear me bitching and moaning about only having two hands and being limited to this mortal coil. If I could, the moment we get robot slaves, or I get extra arms attachable to my body, it's all over. No one's going to see the light, see a whiff of me, because I'm just going to be trying to wield as many instruments as possible at the same time.
I mean, we've all seen the cartoons from the 90s, right? You just need to find some toxic waste and roll around in it, and then you'll be like, grow the extra arms and you'll be all good, man. It's easy.
Why won't these spiders bite me?
Yeah, that's it. Toxic Crusaders.
Yeah. But I do.
You got to
wanna
see it
sort of-
live. It is something to be seen. I think a lot of the time when people see you up there for the first time, if they haven't seen you, there's no idea on what's going to come.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. Yeah, it's super funny because like the party trick that I bring to the table, because Daniel's not been to see any of my stuff, which is totally fair. I do want to bring the show up to Queensland at some point. I do want to bring it up to come meet Daniel, and of course to play some shows up that way again, because it's been a while since I've played up in Queensland beyond like contract stuff. But to play Van Leucia up north would be sick. But yeah, the first time people see me, they're thinking, oh, okay, so he's setting up a keyboard. Oh, he's got a pretty wide guitar. How many strings is that? And there's a there's always a sort of like general confusion until I start doing what I do, and they're like, oh shit. Which
Yeah.
I like to
It's
think that's pretty
magical.
much the tagline for the show.
That's a thing.
Van
That's the
Lucia.
thing.
Oh shit.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it is.
Sorry, Carl, you to say.
No, it's exactly what it is, but it's something so outside of the niche of what you'd expect to see that it's just it's capturing,
Yeah. I appreciate that.
and it's very
Yeah, like-
entertaining.
I appreciate that. Like it's I very much am a believer in the Devin Townsend school of thinking. You know, just if you want to do something, go bloody do it. It doesn't matter what genre it is. Doesn't matter what character you've set up for yourself. You know, that guy pinballs around from genre to genre, and I've got so much respect and so much admiration for the diversity of that dude's career. And just feel like his innate chill, something that I like, you know, one day I would like to embody, but at the moment I'll make do with mad scientist as a general persona. But yeah, no, he really,
Sorry,
not
go
to
on.
like just tickle the balls of Devin Townsend the whole time, but it is very much something I admire.
Well, you know what? It's a shame that I don't have it anymore. I actually used to have a Schecter Demon 7-string that when Devin released the Empath album, he was doing. I found out like, you know, one day beforehand because, you know, back when I lived in Sydney, I worked in Parramatta, and he was actually doing a signing at at the guitar store on Church Street in Parramatta.
Guitar Factory.
Guitar Factory.
Guitar
Yeah.
Factory, yeah. So I was like, oh my God, okay, I'm taking my lunch break at that time tomorrow, and I'm going down there to try and get in on that. And I actually took the back plate, like the covered the electronics on the back of the guitar down there,
No.
and had him sign that on the inside, on the inner side of it. So I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm like, it you know, by a little bit of osmosis, like his signature's inside the guitar, so it's extra. So, you know, if I still had it and we were tired, I'd be like, mate, would you want to buy it? Because, you know, you can get a little bit of that flavor.
100%.
But yeah. So do you? So I obviously haven't seen your shows. When you're doing these shows, do you have like a backing band for some things? Is it just you and like some backing tracks for certain elements, and you're playing and everything else?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. Thanks for asking. Yeah, look, the number of times I've been asked, dude, when are you gonna get a band? When are you gonna get a backing band at least? The number of times I've been asked that, if I had a penny for each one, I'd have like 5 pennies. But so it has been asked that much, but it has been asked. And look, I play with backing tracks if only because if I were to try to take it live, I feel like I would need like 3 keyboardists, the world's most diverse possible drummer, bass player, and, you know, a couple of guitarists, and, you know, a small choir. Because like, as you've probably heard from the album Inexorable alone, just from Inexorable, I'm fucking with I've written a song in Latin. I've written orchestral music. So much of what I do with the extreme metal kind of head nods towards a strapping young lad end of Devin Townsend's career with some of those songs is, you know, obviously very extreme. And then on the opposite end of town, as you've noted, musical theater is an influence there as well. So because there's so much diversity in what I do, I would either need to have like 10 people on payroll, or like I would need like the most the most cult-like following of band members who would be willing to play these shows with me. And, you know, I'm a firm believer that everyone should be paid. Doesn't matter if it's little or large. Everyone needs to be paid. This is a business. It's an industry. I'm sure we're going to get into things about music industry later on. You're going to have to stop me on my soapbox there. But because of that, it wouldn't feel right for me to have band members along, if only because of that exact reason. Like, this is metal, it's indie at the moment. So for the long answer short, I do play with backing tracks, not very much against my will. So I think one of the solutions to that was in using that party trick I mentioned. Like, I play keys with one hand, I play guitar with the other, I'm singing and screaming and I'm doing all that stuff. I've got vocal effects for harmonizing and pitch dropping and all sorts of stuff. I do as much as I can myself, so such that you don't really feel like there's really anything lacking from the stage. But if I were to add even a single person, I feel like I'd want to add a drummer because that is so much of the soul, the engine room of the songs that I write. But yeah, sorry, really long answer, but short of it is I play with tracks, and I don't love it, but it's to make do.
Okay.
Dude, but that's the thing. That's what creates it for you, because at the end of the day, it is written by you, and no one can take that away from you. And like I was saying to Raff before, it's almost you're more of a composer, and I would love to see you do the orchestral thing and have that ability to have the whole band up there and one day be able to do that.
Yeah. Oh, look. I mean, what's it? What was that album that Metallica did? S&M.
Yeah,
San
now
Francisco with
Parkway.
Metallica. 100% Parkway. Dimmu Borgir has been a huge influence for the longest time because, like, symphonic metal of like Epica, Dimmu Borgir, Nightwish, all those guys, huge influences on my writing. Because those guys, I don't know about saying that for Nightwish, but certainly Epica and Dimmu Borgir definitely write for the orchestra as as the total number of instruments that they are, right? They're not just like some keyboardist playing chords on the keyboard with a strings patch. It's actually someone sitting there writing and orchestrating. And I want to say thanks to Carl for even calling me a composer, because I think amidst my colleagues and my friends that I would call hashtag actual composers, I don't consider myself an actual composer. I'm a reasonable songwriter. I'm a pretty good producer, and I've got a reasonable ear for, like, oh, maybe this should be a clarinet, maybe this should be a French horn, but what I do and what hashtag real composers do is just worlds apart, and I appreciate that you
gotta
call that.
Bullshit. I want to see you do a rock opera.
I gotta disagree with you on that, mate. Like, I'm listening to what you're doing and the pieces you're pulling together, the way they are interweaving, and like the melodies and the counter melodies and the construction of chords across different instruments throughout the orchestration and everything. It's like that's
The 3 minute
any
intro and overture.
to any any reasonable person would absolutely consider that. Like, that's composition beyond what the vast majority of people in especially in like the heavy metal field are doing, right? Like, and it's not
I
to
appreciate that.
that's not to like to put down people that have bands that are
Not
primarily
at all.
focused on the combination, that's the more standard combination of a couple of guitars, bass, drums, and vocals. Like,
100%.
that's absolutely a whole thing, but it's just the way that you're approaching it and doing something different there. It's niche in some ways, but at the same time, when people listen to it, there's kind of something for just about everyone to attach to.
I appreciate that, man. Because,
Yeah,
like, one of the biggest influences for me from a songwriting perspective is like Breaking Benjamin, Trivium,
Oh,
like for me, these were the gateway. I did my first metal bands were not Metallica, not Megadeth.
Yeah.
It was Breaking Benjamin, it was Dream Theater. But yeah, I couldn't possibly imagine that this kid
I was going to say
writing
Dream Theater. It explains a lot.
Yeah, I know,
does.
right? It does. But like Breaking Benjamin, for like they're just good songwriters.
Yes.
As much, it doesn't matter like how many of the albums you listen to, and you're like, eventually by the time you get to the newest ones, you're like, oh, it's old hat. They've been doing the same thing, bro. They're all good songs. You can't complain that they're just good at consistently writing good songs. Same thing goes for Trivium. You can say, oh, this album just sounds a lot like the previous one. So you mean this one sounds as good as the previous one, which was also very good. And yeah, so it was like, Breaking Benjamin, it was Dream Theater, and it was Opeth. Opeth was a huge, huge early influence for me. And that, like, I think just between those three things, having just good songwriting, getting a little wacky with some of the time signatures, still staying technical, still trying to stay a little bit heavy, and then Opeth just made me embrace allowed me to embrace the like that perfect interweaving of screams, cleans, and everything in between. Just so good. Like that Ghost of Perdition and the entirety of the Ghost of Reverie's album is just a top tier record, easily in my top 10 albums of all time. And it was such a big influence. And there's actually a track on the album Inexorable that is very much a hat tip to Opeth as well. So I've just got so much love for those guys. I'm so keen for them to come to Sydney as well later this year.
Oh, they're coming. I'm gonna have to try and keep an eye on them.
Okay,
I'll have to get
far out.
Might have to try and get a scoop up a ticket to go and see them on tour. I was gonna say, like Ghost of Perdition and like the, that whole album is really like that. That was the album that for me, when I kind of first, like, I'd heard the name but not really listened to them, but that was the album where I kind of actually started listening to some of their stuff. And it absolutely floored me. Like, it's that's the kind of band that goes, that's the same approach. It's an orchestration of, it's not just treating the non-standard metal instrumentation as an extra, it's interweaving it.
It's part of it.
Same thing as I mean, we were fortunate enough to interview Flesh God Apocalypse, not
Crazy.
that long ago, regarding their new album, and they released not long ago. And same approach, man. Like they write, but even if you move away from the orchestral minded bands, like if you look at something like Static X, for example, that was always about not just, okay, we got the synthy and dancey and electronic elements there, not as a backup to the guitars, but as equal parts. It's all equal members, right? And they'll bring it in and they'll go, well, we don't need guitar on this song, and they just do it with all synths and it still works and sounds incredible. And
100%.
it's a way of that's the kind of stuff when when we say things like you're composing and composition, like that's approaching it on a different level, because you are juggling more instruments in your arrangement than that. And the fact that and more so the fact that you're doing this like on your own. This is not a project where you have multiple minds bringing all these different ideas to the table and then coming together to create something incredibly special, which is, look, that's, again, not to denigrate that. That's an incredible work from those people. But like, you're out there doing that stuff like on your own, which is why I'm just like, is your head ever quiet, or is it just constantly ideas?
Yeah. I mean, on my phone right now, I have a file right on my home screen that I'm not gonna hold too much of it up to the camera, but that bunch of stuff there is 2 paragraphs of just songs. That's 22 songs I'm writing concurrently. Across 2 albums. There's a single that I've been playtesting at some of these shows. Kyle's heard it, the new single. Like I don't treat all of my shows as playtests, but the most recent shows have been really great for me to perform a song in its gestative state, in its baby state, right? And then between shows, I mature the song a little more and more. So I started off writing this song, funnily enough, very much as like a hat tip to Breaking Benjamin and their writing style. So I was like, okay, I want to write like a very BB kind of track. Started off doing that. And then I was like, wait, hold on. You know what it needs at the end? A dual axe attack solo. So it's so I went like, I went down that end of town, wrote that. I was like, wait, no, hold on. Just starting off the track like that isn't good enough. I got to do these plucked strings. So no, very much. My writing sessions for my own music is it's 50-50 between just mouse clicking, strumming, just entering parts that I've already planned out, that I've already sort of conceived like days or weeks ahead. And it's just like I've just got to get through the meat space of laboring through this annoying real-time thing of having to physically play these fucking instruments, if I could just do this mentally, this would be fine.
Bro, it's some fucking like Mozart shit where like, you know, you've just got all these melodies and layers in your head, and
Yeah.
you're just having to get them out onto the paper or into the
Yeah.
computer so that they're
That's
out of your
right.
brain in like
That's
the
right.
real space. It's crazy.
How do you not get lost in the sauce? Like when you're juggling 22 songs in a
I'm not going to I'm not going to hold it too close to the screen because I don't want to leak too much. But
yeah.
what this is a line by line progress tab that I keep on every single song. I basically boot myself out of my persona, so I take on different aspects of myself. So there's, you know, Van Lucia the performer, then there's Viet the producer, then there's Viet An, I don't know, the bassist. Like there's different aspects of myself. So I try to embody these fragments of my personality so as to best be that guy. So the bass player has something to say. What does the bass player have to contribute to this conversation? You were just saying earlier, like when you're in a band, you have the benefit of having multiple opinions, multiple perspectives, and that makes the songs often greater than the sum of their parts. And that's something that in many cases I previously lacked. But in re-entering the music industry as a solo artist in the last few years, it's been really good to kind of just stretch and flex those muscles in just being all the parts of myself that I am, and just, you know, I can be a bassist. Okay, what does the bassist have to say? Okay, sweet. Switch that guy off, switch it back over to the other guy. What does the guitarist have to say? What does a rhythm guitarist have to say? I can't play the drums nearly as well as what you hear on the records myself, but I try to imagine myself as a very technical drummer. I've been really blessed and privileged to work with some incredible session drummers, some really awesome technical guys, and also some really flavorful, soulful guys who can just play pocket, and they play it damn well. And I sort of just take on those traits and those qualities, and I try to just be those people. And in doing that, I write up this little file that has just line by line responses from each of these parts of myself. And you know, bassist says, "Hey, buddy, you know, I'm thinking maybe just tail off this little part of the mix. Oh, hey, man, as just Viet the drummer here chiming in, just watch the fill at 358, blah blah blah." So it's a whole forum up here. It's a whole, it's a nice little
That's
conversation.
weird. That's some weird file
happening.
management that you have going on in there.
Yeah. But it helps, right? Because when you've got this many
Whatever
songs
works.
and ideas, I think they usually come from a place of me having either the inspiration, right? So I'll hear something on the news, I'll read about something that's happened, something will happen in front of me, I'll hear from a friend something that's happened in their life, and I have a natural response to that. We all do. If your friend calls you up and says, "Hey man, I'm having a real bad time, life is bad, life is shit," and you as a friend would have a natural human response to that as a friend. And that to me is just something that then goes, "Oh, hold on, that has an outlet for me. I can't just hold on to these feelings now that my friend has, as is their right, trauma dumped, because I've opened that door to them. I've welcomed them into my life to do that. But then I've got to put those feelings somewhere too. And it just so happens to be that I've got this creative outlet. So, I'm writing those two albums at the same time. One of them is going to be a dark synthwave record. So it's going to be very like Tron, very, just heavy on the, almost like Prodigy at times, a bit of Deadmau5. And the other record is going to be very Motown, very like Marvin Gaye, very, George Benson. It's going to be involving a lot of like jazzy stuff. And that's because as a person, we all have these responses and feelings, and we all listen to different music. I'd say metalheads in general have a more diverse listening palette in our respective, whatever listening mediums than most people who listen to respectively just jazz or just R&B or just hip hop or just pop or whatever. Metalheads tend to have a wider listening palette. And
I'll agree with that.
I think the only reason why I write so many different genres is, well, because I just listen to that stuff, and naturally sometimes the song just calls for that. It just says, you know what, this song shouldn't just be metal, it's got to be something else. And that's how I end up with like 20 something songs.
That's the thing. When you let yourself exist in those other spaces, inspiration can come from anywhere. And You know, that's the big thing. If you only exist in jazz spaces, you're only going to get so far.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. If the window is
open
only
yourself-
open so far. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the reason why we have a flute solo in a speed song. It's because they have let themselves open to other things. It's why we have awesome saxophone solos in Red Hook songs. Is because they've allowed themselves not to fall into this structure of metal.
Absolutely.
You know, we've copped a bit of flack from one of our reactions that we've done recently. The funny one that we did.
Kill Carl. I'm a metalhead bitch.
Kill Carl. Yeah, I'm a metalhead
okay.
bitch.
Yeah,
people have been a bit funny
yeah.
about it, and
But
it's exactly what we were talking about in the video.
Yeah, like they're not. There's a lot of people looking at it, and the guy's doing. It's a very tongue-in-cheek approach about everything. I don't know if you're familiar with the song or not.
I'm not.
It's
check it out.
It's good. It's
funny as hell.
It's funny. It's funny, and it's like if you're a metalhead and you know metalheads, you're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. And it's a bit sort of, you know, when I say funny, imagine sort of, you know, the way that Tenacious D kind of mocks metalheads, you know, and the silliness of heavy metal. And it's just people are like shitting on it for, like, you know, this is, it's so stupid. It's so cringe. It's this, that, this is, I'm just like,
It's meant to be.
I'm like, you do realize it's parody, right? Like it's tongue in cheek. It's important to me. It's important to me that you understand this before you comment these kind of criticisms, because it shows me that you actually have a degree of media literacy and understanding of what's actually being presented to you.
Yeah, that's right. It would be
joke,
like comment.
right?
Yeah, that's right. It would be like you know, commenting on a Weird Al Yankovic song, saying that he's just ripped off Michael Jackson. It's like, no, my guy.
That's the joke.
That's right. That's the joke. It's like commenting on "We butter the bread with butter," saying like, why can't these guys take anything seriously? My guy.
Yeah.
My
Or
my sweet summer child.
Or a bro job song going, why are these lyrics so gay? It's like the whole point is that. Well, you know,
But that's the thing with metal to begin with. I mean, it's a bunch of grown-ass men screaming down the end of a microphone with really, really loud guitars, with a bunch of sweaty people that haven't showered all day, ramming each other in a mosh pit. How can you take it seriously? What is there to be taken serious?
Yeah. I do find that like some of that is posture. That's true, but you know, like in my experience, it's been really awesome to also go to shows where people do take themselves really seriously, and in a sense that can be relieving, right? Like when you sort of just take on a character, because like Carl's seen me play, and I very much am Van Lucia when I hit that stage. Like, yes, there is a degree of Viet Anh Nguyen in that, but Van Lucia is a whole, not different, but it is a shade of me. It's not all of me, right? And so when I embody that character, there is something that's relieving and is very freeing in becoming that character, like any actor does in front of a camera or on a stage. And I feel like that is part of the ritual of being a metalhead. If you're the kind of guy that puts on corpse paint to turn up to gigs, fucking do it. You fucking do it. That is a level of commitment that I do not have, and I turn up in armor and a cape, but that is still a level of commitment that I do not yet have, and I salute you for it. And if you're the kind of person that just turns up in jeans and a t-shirt, also fucking fine. But that's what makes metal so good. Yes, it gatekeeps. Yes, it is really toxic from time to time, but I have found it to be one of the most wholesome, like comrade-like environment compared to so many other industries, and I have been in pretty much all of them.
Well, I like, and don't get me wrong, like we obviously understand there's taking the music seriously and then taking yourself seriously, and
two different things.
You know, while obviously people should take the music seriously and take themselves seriously to a point, there is obviously these people that are just so self-serious about it. So like, like if it's comedy, it can't be metal. I'm like, well, okay, you better fuck off Death Clock. You better fuck off even Infant Annihilator with what they're doing, basically parodying metal by being so fucking extreme that it's ridiculous.
Drag.
Bands like Drag, bands like fucking, like we said, you know, it's just bands that are doing great, really, really good. Even Devin Townsend doesn't take, Devin Townsend throws comedy and
Spinal Tap, and they were the OGs.
Like Devin Townsend, we talked about him, but he put fucking meowing cats on his shit.
That's right.
Like,
That's right. And like, even if you want to like step away from Devin Townsend's solo stuff, like if you say comedy isn't metal, Strapping Young Lad.
Oh, dude, that was
Alien. Alien is one of the funniest albums.
Yeah.
Like, bar none. Period.
Like,
no, nothing further. It's so fucking funny.
Yeah.
Gua, 100% riff.
Yeah. Absolutely. Like, yeah. So, but okay, I want to pivot for a second, if I could.
Please do.
With your like level of ability in terms of composition and being able to pull something together and playing, covering so many instruments and this kind of ability that what you're able to produce, have you looked at working in composition for like film and TV scoring, for like things like jingle making for commercials, or like for doing all this kind of stuff? Is that something you've explored?
I'm not being a dick and saying this because you're Asian, but anime. I could see so many of your tracks being in a fucking anime.
Okay, so thank you. Firstly, thank you. I actually take it as a compliment. I very much take this, not racist at all. I take it as a compliment because anime soundtracks are fucking baller.
They are.
They're so good. Okay, so I actually have in the past gone on, sick. I have gone on to, I have done some short films. I have done a bit of like some mobile game stuff. I have, done some advertising stuff from here and there. I feel like my responses probably don't really feel very, they're a bit half-hearted. They're not like from the chest,
Well, it's a job, but, it's to bring money in more than anything else. But
exactly, like I don't get the same kind of joy from, enlivening a scene on a screen in the same way like a film composer might, right? It's film composer. Those of my friends and colleagues who do work in that industry, that is their lifeblood. They get a kick out of it. They get a high from it. That is just their entire lifeblood. They won't rest until the scene sounds the way it needs to sound. Because when it sounds the way it sounds, it looks the way it needs to look. Because of course the two senses are intertwined when you're watching a movie. But I'm just not that guy. Like I love writing filmic stuff. And I think I would write a damn good boss theme for Elden Ring 2, if ever there were one. Because a lot of people have said that, a couple of my tracks do give off the very like Final Fantasy Elden Ring vibes. But yeah, like I've dabbled in it. It's just something that I found after having dabbled in it that it's not for me. I find a great deal of joy and a hell of a lot of satisfaction in, I don't know, engineering a solo artist's bucket list song. They've had a song they've had in their heart, in their head for like 20 years, and they just needed to get it out. And I helped make that happen. That gives me so much more validation. I've got local bands who come through, like, for example, Virescent has come through with a couple of their singles recently, This Storm and War being two of their singles that they've released. Were recorded and mixed and mastered at my studio. And dude, like the amount of satisfaction and joy that I get from that, unparalleled. No amount of stage work, no amount of
pain in their own butt.
Oh yeah, they're so fucking good. I love the Virescent guys.
Yeah, like they got aura. They got auras oozing.
Oh, dude, not just Sean. Like every member of that band just has crazy charisma. I love those guys so much. But yeah, like those are all things that I have dabbled in, and from time to time, I do reach out to local industry folks, and I say, hey, look, my heart's back in the game. Anyone who wants me, here's my previous work. Go to town. Okay. And almost always there's a very, very quick offer, which I'm very privileged to accept. I don't take it lightly. And funnily enough, responding to Kyle there on anime, I actually did write and release a single that was a near parody. It was still somewhat serious, but it was a near parody of anime songs. It was a single I released back in like 2019, I think, called Totsugeki Suru, where the entire song's written in English except the chorus, which just features a couple of random Japanese words. Because we all know Japanese songs do the reverse of that. The entire song's in Japanese,
do.
and then just like out of nowhere, there's just be like a random English word here and there. I
There
fucking
is.
loved that about it. Growing up watching anime, I'd be like, "Oh, I know this word. I can sing this word. Everything else, I'm just gonna mumble." But yeah,
Oh.
so I would love nothing more than I think to be featured in that way. But no, there are some awesome composers out there, and again, not invalidating your guys' praise. I appreciate it a lot, but there are guys out there who would write a screenplay soundtrack just so much immensely better than I, and
That's fair
I
enough.
stand by it.
I mean, and look, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, right? Like, just because you've got the skills to do something doesn't mean that's where your passion is. And I
Yeah.
totally get that. I 1,000% understand that. I mean, I will say, you mentioned video, you mentioned Elden Ring 2, potentially there or whatever, as like a thing you'd like to have a crack at maybe. I
Yeah.
tell you what, I would love to see the kind of video game soundtrack that you could create, especially if you were like working with someone like, say, Mick Gordon,
Yeah, Mick
obviously
Gordon, yeah.
absolute legend of the game, who's made so many killer game soundtracks, but is obviously most well known for his work with the Wolfenstein and the Doom games.
Doom, yeah.
But the other thing that I did want to bring up as well is, like, clearly you're very prolific and you're able to kind of turn these things around fairly quickly when you're in the mood to, when like you've got the energy to do it there. I think, have you ever considered looking at wrestlers in like the Australian kind of thing, or even internationally, and just being like, hey, if wrestlers, if you want if you want custom music, let me know what you might, because I mean, I feel
That's
like
a thought.
I feel like
That's
you could
fucking-
do. I feel like you could do like a whole range of styles for them, and obviously different
Yeah.
wrestlers like different styles of stuff.
That's right. That's right.
So I feel like you could really kind of, and again, it's obviously, passion is important and everything. And like for me, I'm like a huge fucking wrestling nerd, so like, I
Hell
got the
yeah.
opportunity to put together a theme song for a wrestler friend of mine a little while ago. I got a
Sick.
couple of friends on board. I was like, hey, this is the dude, this is the vibe, like, what are we feeling? Has anyone got some cool ideas? And we kind of worked together and came up with something really cool, and he's now out there using that at his shows, and it's like,
Yeah.
but I think, for what you're able to do, obviously, is like one man crew, man. Like, you could fucking you could be doing that. And hey, there's a bloke in the US who does it for like a lot of all of the kind of or most of the wrestlers in All Elite Wrestling. A guy by
Yeah.
the name of Mikey Ruckus, who literally makes a living off composing like wrestling themes for people.
That's awesome.
And the licensing and everything off of that, and he's made themes for like 100 150 something wrestlers over the course of his career, and a lot of
Oh,
them are
wow.
on like a lot of them are on All Elite Wrestling now. It's kind of his go-to. Like, if they don't want to use a licensed song, they'll usually come to him and be like, hey, can you put something together? And
That's
there's
awesome.
stories from him about like, we want to, we need something like to, it's like 10 o'clock at night, and they're like, oh, we need something for this person for the show tomorrow. And he's like, I got you. And then he's pumped out these absolute, like, these themes that are just like great. They just, insanely
That's awesome.
good. So like
Dude,
that-
yeah, I gotta look into that, because
Yeah.
a friend of mine is the wrestler, the Aussie wrestler Jay Sonic. He's a dude. I think he wrestles with a LED mask and headphones on. I think that's his theme, his aesthetic, and he's actually a really good drummer. And I think he ended up doing his own theme, right? And I was like, man, that is a proactivity I admire, right? But yeah, I hadn't thought of that, and I really do like the notion. So something that I've been talking to a local musician about. She's a wonderful cellist, a really, really great player and human, and a teacher as well. And she's been thinking of, because she does, of of all things, besides playing the cello, she does a lot of horse riding. And as you know, with like, when the Olympics come around, there's all these sorts of different events. And one of the events that come around is this thing called dressage, where like, the horses essentially prance around. They've got to do these very specific tricks. And there's a whole bunch of music that has to happen for that. And funnily enough, we've been talking about doing custom music for those events, which would be much more classical, much more kind of like, so to some degree, poppy and dancey. But I really like the idea of doing some some butt rock or some like good old fashioned new metal for some wrestlers. I want to hear some like Mick Gordon esque like synth like layered with guitars.
There is. Let me tell you, there is so many. Like you go to go into any local wrestling event, you will hear lots of people that have like either just a song that they like. That's a popular song, or they've found some music, on like a licensing library or even like a license-free library that they can use for whatever. And it's, it's fine, but it's nice. I think for a wrestler, one of the things that is, I think is important to them is having music that they feel is perfect for them, that perfectly represents them. And hey, if that is a licensed song, fine. Like that's totally fine. But I think for so many of them, having the ability to have something custom means a lot. So hey, I'm just not trying to give you career advice there. I'm just saying there is an underserved market in Australia for that, and I guarantee
especially
if you were to
now that
start
wrestling's getting so much bigger.
Yeah, and and hey, look, there's like WWE is more global than ever, and wrestling is more global than ever these days, and people from Australia are making it in the business. There's I can probably count, like we've got probably at least a half a dozen or more Aussies that are representing out there in the industry, which is crazy when you consider like the population thing. And some of them are at the top level of the game. So like if you're working with someone and you're like making them a few themes now as they're in this stage, you never know, like later on down their career, if they make it, if they get to that stage and they get to there, they might be like, hey, I need, make me a, can you make me a custom? And then it's out there getting played on, international TV multiple times a week. It goes up on all the thing, and then you get connections and things like that. You just never know what's going to come from these things, right?
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, I very much love that idea so much more than, say, for example, doing a jingle, right? So like it could arguably be on a similar level to doing like, I don't know, a jingle track for the NRL or some other rugby thing. They've got similar crossovers in like the way that the music gets played, the kind of music that wants to get represented on those kind of things, right? Because when you work with the NRL, of course, like I've got a couple of mates who work in production libraries. They supply music to the NRL, AFL, all that sort of stuff, and it's all pretty hard hitting stuff. But they also confess that it does feel a little faceless, it does feel a little like, you're just a guy, no, very little recognition beyond just like, oh, it's the noise behind the announcement, right? Whereas I so much prefer this idea of working with somebody, helping them, craft their identity, because with wrestling, so much of that, because I wouldn't call myself a wrestling nerd at all. But from what I've seen in the past, it's so much of that is an identity show. It's not just the fights. It's not just the drama. It's an identity. It's, one person's character versus another person's character.
Yep.
And if you can identify those things by any means necessary, if it's by sound, by costume, by swagger, by tropes, those things are critical. So I like, when you tell me that, there are these folks going out there essentially playing, unlicensed music or, royalty-free music, generic library stuff. That breaks my heart a little because it's like, man, it's 2025. You could be getting custom shit.
The best example I can give you, and I don't want to harp on this too much. We'll move on very, very shortly. But the best example I can give you is the people that WWE use at the moment is a team called Def Rebel, DEF Rebel. And unfortunately, it's a bit of a trope that people are getting Def Rebelled with their music at the moment, because like it's you have the Royal Rumble every year and it's like the surprise entrance and nobody knows who's coming out next and everything, and it used to be that someone's music had hit and it was identifiable. You knew who it was the instant the music hit. From the first couple of notes, everyone's losing their mind because they know who it is. It's like, oh my god, it's this person. Now,
Yeah.
so many people have these generic ass Def Rebel themes that the music will start and people are like, who is it? They're waiting for the name to show up on the screen before they react. And then it's kind of, instead of a immediate, it's like, it kind of like just builds a bit slow. It doesn't have the same impact, you know what I mean? So it goes to show you how important music is in that arena. So, hey,
100%.
Funeral
again,
gongs. Doom,
there's
doom.
lots of, there is literally thousands of wrestlers across the country, and if you look across the world even more, we're global now. It'd be easy to reach out to tons of people. So hey, if you're a wrestler and you're watching this and you want a cool, unique theme song, hit this guy.
I'm your guy.
It's
I'm your
right,
guy.
guys.
I'm in.
Hit this guy.
I'm in. I'm 100%.
But I tell you what, but I think that's the thing. A lot of people look at, especially now with the way the internet is, if you're a good songwriter, you can write music for so much shit now.
Oh yeah. Fuck yeah.
Like there's just the sky's the limits. It could just be like something for a website. It could be, it could just be a theme for a fucking podcast. It could be anything. Like there's so much out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And like that's something I tell a lot of not only my students, because I do a lot of mentorship, I do a lot of private tuition. I don't just tell my students, I tell pretty much anybody who'll listen, is that the music industry is now more than ever a viable, not just viable, a livable career. It's hard. I'm not saying it's easy, but in the same way that a laborer breaks his back from 6 a.m. to 4 p.m., right? A musician is grinding. And you got to be ready to fucking work. There is a minimum bar of grit required to not only survive but thrive in the music industry. And like that's something that I think a lot of folks misunderstand about the music industry. And as much as that grit is a requirement, it still means that you can thrive.
Yeah,
I think
you got to work hard, but would you prefer to be doing some job that you despise and only getting to touch your instrument once every 2 weeks when you can find the spare hour?
Yeah. I think
would
what a
you
lot
not
of people
prefer to just grunt for it?
Fucking oath. But what a lot of people don't understand is that while everyone else is relaxing, watching the bands, you're meant to be up there playing. So it's like your whole life sort of flips around into the normalcy of what's.
But it's not. I think the thing is though,
You're there to entertain.
A lot of people have. A lot of people say, oh, you can't make a career in the music industry these days because they think of it as, writing and releasing their own music, and that they see that as the end of the discussion, right? And we literally had this chat, within the last few weeks with someone about, there's a reason that so many people in bands do other stuff tangential to that. People are out there, Matt Heafy's out there doing all his live streams all the time. And that's partly a way to connect with his fans, but also he's getting that Twitch revenue from that, and from the ad revenue and all that, and from the paid subscribers and all that sort of stuff. And that there's people out there, that do music and play in music and bands, but then also on the side they run a studio or they do production work for people.
Albums.
And they do. There's people out there that do their own original bands, but then they also will play in cover bands and tribute. We had a band on not long ago that the band actually operates under two different identities.
Loose Surface.
One as a cover band where they'll go out and they'll do like 3 hours of covers at a fucking pub or whatever, and that brings the money in, and then they use that money to fund their original stuff.
Absolutely.
And it's, you like, it might be very difficult these days with the way streaming revenue is and things like that to earn an income from just that side of it. But if you're exploring all these other areas and as you say, you're putting in the grind, there is a very real possibility that you could make a career out of it. I mean, obviously there's connections and luck plays a big part of it as well, but there is viable paths there, but it can't just be one element of the business anymore. You have to be in all of these different things.
That's right. And like, I think there is a disconnect between the perceived golden era of the music industry, because when you ask folks, especially of the older generation, right, like what they think of as the golden era, 99% of them will respond 80s and 70s. Most of them will say 70s and 80s were like the golden era. And when you ask them why, beyond their perceived subjective
It's the drugs,
appreciation of the
man.
music from that time. It was the activity, exactly. It was the scene, it was the lifestyle, it was activity, right? It's like, yeah, but then you also had musicians ODing. For every Amy Winehouse, you had hundreds, thousands more with unfortunately far more tragic fates. For every musician that was cheated in a label record that you hear about, hundreds more. Yes, there's that famous Frank Zappa interview where he talks about, how during the 80s, people were just taking a gamble. Labels were taking a gamble with virtually any artist, and they were like, yeah, we'll just, give anything a shot. And, he goes on to bemoan the nature of how, like, sort of stats driven the current music industry is, or current to that time of that interview. My guy, it's always been stats driven. The only difference was that at that time, you had the benefit of the stats not yet being against you.
Well,
The
they weren't
stats
so
were
immediate
for
even.
you.
They weren't so immediate then. Nowadays it's so
Absolutely.
immediate. Like,
It
back
is.
then a label would see you and go, okay, we think you're worth a punt. They would take you on, develop you, they would invest in you, help you put that out. And then once the album
That's right.
came out and you're doing that, okay, cool. Then they start to get the feedback and they're like, oh, okay,
right.
we're not going to take up your other options. Nowadays
Sure.
nowadays they want your stats before you're even on there to be
Yeah,
fair. Like
correct.
they want your stats. They want to see that you don't need them before they want to actually bother with you.
Well, yeah, because they want to see that they can get a return on their investment, right?
Immediately.
ROI.
They want that immediately as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the thing is, like, would you rather take a shot on, you know, 20 artists, 20 middling artists to make a 1% ROI over the course of 10 years? Or would you prefer to take a gamble on 2 artists and make a 10% ROI in 1 year? Obviously, the latter option.
From a
right?
business perspective, I get it. From a business perspective, I get it. But as a creative and a fan of amazing art, like, it's crazy to me the amount of bands that I look at, and it's like, how many musicians and bands do we not know about because they, are having to toil away in a dead end job just to pay their bills, right? Great example. There is a TikTok channel that you might have seen. Maybe a YouTube channel as well. I'm not sure, but this guy basically goes around like New York with like a keyboard, a couple of things, and a mixer and everything. It's all set up on his thing, and he's like, he's like, hey, I make music. Like, do you want to make some stuff with me? And then it literally on the fly make a track or make some music, and people will just be like rapping or singing on it. And these are just random people in the street. And it's great. Like, granted, he's going to post the best clips to his thing. He's not going to post the trash ones. But these are just all these crazy people. It's like the talent that these people have, just everyday people wandering around. It is insane, the level of talent that does not get realized because of the way that the industry and the way society in general is set up these days.
That's right.
That's saturation too, though. Now, it's like as much as it's like anyone can do it, and you'll probably find a lot of those people have put something out on Spotify, but it's just they don't know how to work. But now it's the other side of things where it's like you got to work on the social media side of things to then get people to go to your Spotify. Everyone wants to know who the person is before they go listen to the music, where before they used to want to listen to the music and then get to know the person if they had that privilege.
At all, and don't take what I'm saying as an analysis of why labels operate the way they do to be an approval of that. Like, it is logical, but that doesn't make it compassionate. It doesn't make it it doesn't make it supportive of the arts. It's a business choice, and as a function of capitalism, as a function of consumerism, it's a choice they have to make. That's totally fair. But I have always been a champion of independent art being made on their own steam. I recognize that I am privileged by nature of having been an entry to the industry at a younger age with a certain environment. I wasn't born with a mental disability, a physical disability. I wasn't born into an environment that was dispositive to the cultivation of art, because there are lots of kids who grow up in families that tell them to shut the fuck up just because they're practicing. And I can only imagine just how many potential artists we've lost to this void just because of one disgruntled dad or one overly stressed mom. And it's a very real truth, unfortunately, that we are always going to have lost so much more greatness to, as you might say, oversaturation, or just a lack of awareness. You know, we're always going to have lost so many more artists than what we'll ever find. But going back to what I was saying earlier, this is why I try to tell everyone that'll listen, all of my students especially, there is a career in music. You just have to find your niche. You've got to be ready to grind and you've got to hustle for it. But there is a career in music, because if you stay in there, if you stay in the business, you will survive in the business. But even if that means taking on side hustles, working a day job, so be it. But you've got to devote it in the same way that any one of those finance tech bros will try to say some shit like, put aside 10% of your income to this, put aside 10% of your time, put aside time to do this. It's an investment like anything else, but it's an investment in your heart, it's an investment in your soul, in your art, and that is an investment in yourself. And that is so much more valuable than money to those who have the privilege to be able to do that. And you know, it's so great that, you know, I'm thankful, for example, that I was born and I grew up in Australia, the land of opportunity, man. Like, so much more so than America has ever been or ever will be. The land of opportunity. And it's such a great country to be able to afford me the chance to just live a career of music and to be able to then sit on a high horse and say the same. But this industry can chew people up and it can spit them out, like with total disregard. But there is so much opportunity. There is so much there. And, you know, if anyone sees this podcast, you know, my message to them would absolutely be, just fucking do it. Just do it.
Just
like
do it.
Do it.
Do it. No, absolutely,
Yes, you
absolutely.
can.
Like, it's one of those things where, you know, it sounds cliche, and like, I hate it because, look, it's been me too. I've been through the stage in my own musical journey where, you know, I was like still kind of holding out hope that, you know, maybe we'll make it, right? Like, maybe I'll be able to make it and do a career in music and everything. And, you know, I've long since accepted that for me, it's probably not likely to be the case, right? Like, and I am happy with my, you know, dalliances in it. Like, I still play in a couple of bands. We obviously do the podcast. I still am open for production work. If bands want to reach out to me and talk about that, like, I'll absolutely help out on that front. But I'm like, you know, it's like, I'm almost 40. I'm like, okay, you know what? It's kind of probably, you know, bit late for me, probably not going to happen. I don't think I'm ever going to be able to make a career off of my musical stuff, but that's fine, because I think the other side of it for me is, in hindsight, I think if I had turned this passion into my job, it would have killed the passion.
Yeah, absolutely. Something that I had to make a decision on. I think like most people do, actually. So this is a pretty universal experience, I think. When you finish up high school and, you know, your teachers and your parents and your relatives and all your friends are asking you, so what are you going to do when you leave school? And it feels like a very final choice, right? It very much feels like one of those choose your own adventure books where, like, you can't turn back after this one. This is it. You know, this is the final branching path. Pick your life, you know. And at the time, I was, again, already fortunate to already be in the music industry and to already have had the opportunity to pursue so much of the music career at a young age that I could make that choice, right? With a more informed state, you know. But you know, I still have a great love of legal studies. I still study Latin. I buy myself a textbook probably, or another, like, you know, analysis book in Latin once every year or so, every couple of years. Because I realized at that time, as much as I love law, like the study of law, as much as I love Latin, I don't need it. I don't breed it. I don't breathe it. Breed. I don't breathe it. I don't bleed it. You know, I do that for music. Yeah, as you were joking earlier, is your head ever silent? Is it always just music up there? Yes, yes, it absolutely is.
So you buy like Latin textbooks for fun, essentially, is what you.
Yeah,
So, okay,
I buy
next
like
question.
grammatical analyses and shit.
Next question: How does it feel to be the world's biggest nerd? I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I say
valid,
that with love. I say
valid.
that with love. This is coming
Thank
from
you.
a nerd. This is coming from like look
No,
at
exactly.
look at this shit, right? This is
Yeah,
not
yeah,
a
yeah.
fucking non-geek fucking setup, all right?
No, I appreciate that so much. Look, yes, I recognize that it is extremely nerdy of me to buy myself a fucking Latin book, well, like, or a book on the studies of Latin, once in a while. But I also recognize that fucking writing music is nerdy as well.
Yeah.
No, it is.
Fucking,
It
if you're
is.
if you're a
is, it
musician,
is.
you're a fucking nerd. It doesn't matter how like unga bunga bonk donk like 010001 gent you write. You're still a
Yeah.
fucking nerd. You still pick up
Exactly.
an
I don't need
instrument.
I don't need
that has
theory,
to-
man. I just want it to sound good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the next thing you know, you're sitting there with your drummer going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're going, that's fucking nerdy. You don't
It is.
see a bunch of jocks sitting around doing that. They're too busy, like, I don't know, getting drunk or some shit. Well, that's also fair. They do them. But my point is, if I'm a nerd, I'm proud to be one, and I'm proud to consider myself a nerd amidst so many other fucking nerds in this industry, because musicians are just so fucking cool as people to hang around. The most autistic, socially like anxious musician is still cooler to me than a fucking conversation around a water cooler.
Yep.
Right?
True.
Give me the neurodivergents, give me the nerds. I will happily hang out with any one of them and listen to them rave about whatever their special interest is before you catch me talking about the weather in an office.
Yeah, I fucking hate that shit.
So what's your favorite diminished ninth chord then, if we're talking like
C sharp.
Oh man. All right. This is great. Man, you know what? I feel like we could keep talking fucking for like another 3 hours if we really let ourselves.
Would
but
happily,
we'll
man.
we'll wrap the podcast up there. So you've got, before we do though, we'll say, so you've got multiple releases out on Spotify. You got there's Inexorable, which is from 2022. You've got I mean, it's called a single, but it's like 5 tracks.
Yeah, it's an EP.
Saturnalia, EP, Reminisce. Yeah.
Yeah, Reminisce.
Love of My. So you got like shit tons of stuff
so
out there.
much. There's an actual discography there to listen to.
And-
There's so much meat to chew
And
on.
we didn't even, okay. Last thing we'll talk about before we move on there. Obviously, you did this thing where you wanted to release like a song every 2 weeks in 2019.
Yeah, that's right.
Right? Like,
that was stupid.
Yeah, I was gonna say, did you get to a point about like 7 months in where you're like, why the fuck did I do this to myself?
No, I think that was honestly one of the best things I could have done to myself. So up until that point, I think before 2019, I had more or less stayed quite a number of years in songwriting hiatus. In fairness, I was focusing on being a better engineer, being a better producer, working on my performing career, all these things. There were a whole bunch of other stuff. But around 2019, or 2018 rather, I realized that I was getting way too obsessive and I was getting too focused on thinking about, will they like this? Will I like this? Is the engineering up to snuff?
You got into the it has to be perfect trap.
That's right. And so in 2019, I decided, fuck that, and I shifted my head around the notion of finished but not perfect. And I was like, fuck it. Every 2 weeks, whatever my standards are, if my standards are high and I'm disappointed, fuck my feelings, the song has to go out.
I like that.
I found an equilibrium. I eventually found an equilibrium where I didn't release a song every 2 weeks, but I found my sweet spot, which was just enough perfectionism in the engineering, in the songwriting, in the performance quality, in the all the other stuff. I found an equilibrium between what I was willing to accept for myself versus what was good enough to go out. And I found what that meant for me. And what that means for every other person is going to be totally different. Yeah. And for me, though, doing a song every 2 weeks was just such a great exercise in putting the nails in, as I like to call it.
Mm.
You know, you put the nails in and you're just like, well, buddy, that nail's about to hit the wood.
Yeah.
You got to do something.
Yeah. Well, that's it.
We better
we've
finish
said-
it up
we've-
because we're hitting release
yeah,
today.
we've
You got to get
said-
it done.
We've said on here in the past, you know, something. I mean, I've struggled with it. I know a lot of people have struggled with it. You know, perfect is the enemy of finish or done. Perfect is the enemy of
Correct.
done. And it's, as you say, it's a challenge. Everyone's got to sort of go through. Everyone's got to find their own road to that. But it's so like that's kind of where I get to with stuff. Like when I've mixed stuff for my bands and for other bands, I kind of get to a point where I'm like, okay, I can make 1,000 more tweaks, and it'll sound different, but it won't necessarily sound better or worse.
That's right.
And that's the point. Right. That's the point where I have to say, from my side of it, okay, if you are you guys happy with it? If you guys are happy with it, then I'm happy with it, and we'll call it a day. If
100%.
you know, if it's a case of I'm happy with it, where are you guys with it? Do you guys want some changes? They might come back and want changes. Cool. All right. Sweet. Like they want changes. It's their thing. Cool. I'll make the changes you want to make from there. But you get it. Yeah. Coming to that point, it's just like you know, because I got so tired, like giving myself headaches from what I call ear squinting, which I'm sure you're probably familiar with that. It's like you kind of like you kind of defocus your eyes and you're not really looking at the screen. You're kind of looking down or up there kind of thing, and you kind of like squint. It's and you give yourself a headache because all those tiny little muscles to
I got you. Yeah,
exactly.
And it's like and so much of that is, as you say, it's perfectionism, but also it's the law. It's the law of diminishing returns when it comes to the more time that you spend with the mix, because at all times that you're listening to it, you're becoming influenced. You're becoming prisoner to what it currently sounds like.
Yeah.
And how you respond to being that prisoner is more a comment on your personality than on the song quality itself, on the mix quality, right? And like, for example, what I found is that it's like a logarithmic curve, right? If you draw a curve this way, you know, whatever direction, if this is time, as time goes on, the progress you spend on the mix early on in those first couple of hours, 100%, you're making great strides. You're getting that static mix. You've got some basic EQ choices. You've even probably got a couple of reverbs on there already. And then the next couple of hours, you're going, oh shit, okay, I've got to get some automation on this. I've got to work on that resonance. And why does my snare currently sound like shit? And then a couple of hours down the line, you're starting to move sideways because you're no longer actually improving that mix in a measurable way.
Yeah.
And like, you know, what is measurable, right? It's that distinction that really makes a song pop, makes it shine, right? For example, bad bass management can completely decapitate a mix, right? It can completely take its head off. And if you attend to that early, great. But even if you attend to it later, that's still a measurable difference. That's still a choice that is going to make great strides in the track's progress, right? But something like the specific frequency that you try to bring out, or the frequency range, I should say, being technical here, that you try to bring out in your overhead cymbals of your drum kit, motherfucker, no one's hearing that. No one's hearing that. And the only people who are hearing that are YouTube commentators. And I don't say this with disrespect to YouTube commentators, but they're the only people who are going to be listening to the album, posting a react video, and then saying this mix sucks because of this or that reason. Most people are going to listen to the song and they're going to say, that sounds fucking brutal, hit like.
Yeah.
And that's good enough.
Yeah. And it's making that decision for who am I making it for? I mean, obviously yourself first,
Yes.
but am I making this to impress other musicians? Am I making this to impress the, you know, like you say, the React people? Am I making it to impress the you know, some person that maybe, you know, I'm going to send the mix to, or am I making it so that the average person, the lay person can hear it and enjoy it? And that's
Absolutely.
90% of the people out there don't have the sound systems quality enough to actually pick it apart anyway.
Yeah. Earbuds, you know, AirPods, Samsung earbuds, all that kind of stuff, as great as wireless earbuds are, for most people, it's just not going to carry, you know.
No,
like
I haven't got the drive.
You know, a lot of these services, they'll be streaming it out at fucking 128 kbps.
That's right.
Fucking squished to shit. like so much of that
Compression.
nuance and tiny details that you've put in there is just going to get compressed to the shit house when they take all those, when they put it through the algorithm. So
Absolutely.
it's not saying don't take care when you're doing these things. Obviously take care when you're doing them, but just remember that ultimately a lot of those details, you are the only person that's ever going to hear them.
Yeah, pretty much, right?
And if you want to say, hey, that's fine. If you want to put that kind of effort in for you to be the only person to hear it, okay. But most people are never going to hear it, and most people, even if they do hear it, are not going to notice it.
Absolutely. And like that's why I describe Inexorable very much as being the record where I didn't listen to good sense. Like everything we're saying here is good, reasonable sense. And Inexorable is very much me just saying, nah, fuck that. If I want to have 3 14-minute songs on this album, I want to have, a song that has a, 200-person orchestra and a 16-person choir singing in Latin. I want to have a song that goes for just a little bit longer than it probably should because I put in 2 drops, with the call 2 Chinas, and someone goes, I'm in danger. And then, everything hits, just a little bit slower. When the groove comes back a little slower. Did that twice in a song just because, right? So Inexorable very much for me is a record where I was very self-serving. It was a record written very much for me, and it just so happens to be that people let me play that music at them.
Not to them, at them. I like
at
that.
Them. That's right. That's
them.
Right. It's like what's it, Ken in the Barbie movie? Just I'm gonna sit here and play guitar at you. but like the other 2 records that you mentioned there, Saturnalia and Reminisce, they were written in the same year. I actually had all 3 albums finished at the same time. I just released them separate from one another because I wrote them at the same time. I wrote, what was that total? That's 10, and then so 17 or so songs, I think. I wrote them concurrently as well because I was like, I just had these thoughts and these ideas and these, at the same time. Reminisce was me writing a challenge, like it was a sort of a writing challenge, and Saturnalia was, a hat tip to another bunch of my influences. But, these records when they come out are very much on my time, and that's why I'm such a supporter of independent music, because I think if someone like a label or some such had said, hey, look, Van, would love for you to put an album out this year, I would have put out something on time, reasonable quality, but it wouldn't have been my best writing. I don't think Testimonium Calumnia. I don't think the overture would have happened on
really
Inexorable.
far out.
Yeah, if I was limited by time, the overture wouldn't have happened. I wrote the overture in one night.
No, you did not.
I wrote the overture to the album in one night because, firstly, overtures are a bit just a. Here's a trick that the composers don't want you to know. An overture is basically really just a highlight reel. So I just, slice and diced a bunch of stuff from the other tracks on the album. But then I wrote some additional stuff. So in fairness, there was some level of cutting and pasting, but there was some original content written in there to sort of bridge the gaps between one track's theme moving to the next track's theme. But I wrote that in one night because it came to me. It was like, no, you know what this album really needs? You know what really would tie this bitch together? An overture. And there it was. And that was like 2 weeks before the moment where I said, you know what, I think it's ready to release.
Bro's out here writing overtures in 2022. Like, no one else is doing that shit.
No one. Not for metal albums either.
Well, look, as I said,
I appreciate you, man.
We could probably keep talking for another like 5 hours.
You'll have to get you back on.
We will have to get you back on, absolutely, at some point.
Totally down for it.
But look, thank you so much for hanging out with us today for the chat. We really, really appreciate that. For everyone who's listened this far or watched this far, we will have Quick Question Quarter and Get in the Bin coming on the YouTube channel on the weekend. So make sure you check out those. If you've liked this video so far, please give it a like. If not, downvote the shit out of it. But if you don't like it, why have you watched this far, really? I mean, it's kind of on you at this point.
It's a bit
but hey, if you have watched this far, we really appreciate it if you could consider subscribing and maybe checking out the Patreon. Go and check out Van Leucia on Spotify. We're going to have links to the socials down there in the description. So go and check it out. Go and give those albums a listen because they are impressive. So it's this guy's mind, man. I don't know what, just I don't know what's going on in there, but like there's
I wonder what sleep's like. Do you sleep?
I sleep like a vampire, man. I just lie down and sleep.exe runs.
Oh wow.
Bum, bum, bum. Autism.
Yeah.
But thank you so much, everybody. This has been amazing. It's been a great chat, and thank you, man. Like I can't thank you enough. This is awesome.
Appreciate
like I
you
said,
guys.
we could probably have, and then that's not even to mention like the discussions we could have about gear and all sorts of other stuff as well. But look, thank you so much, everybody, for watching so far. I have been the Reverend Raff, along with the BeerBuddy Kyle and fan Leucia. Go and check out his stuff. We will have links down there below. Keep an eye out for gigs. Go and check. I feel like you have to see this guy in person. I'm definitely going to have to keep an eye out next time you're up in Brisbane, mate. But yeah, thank you so much, everybody, for watching this far. We'll catch you guys next time. Look after each other. Peace out.
Peace.
Cheers.
Thank you so much for hanging out with us today. We really hope you had a good time. If you did, please consider hitting that subscribe button and the notification bell down there. It helps the channel grow. We are still a fairly young channel and we like to try and grow our audience all over the world. We do also, for those of you who are interested, have a Patreon. It's just a couple of bucks a month. At the moment, you get all the videos early and ad-free, but we are working on ways to increase the value of that and make it a bit more enticing. So don't forget to keep an eye out and check back on what's going on over there. Other than that, thank you so much for your time. Enjoy the rest of your day.